you rebelling, don't you think that kind of created a rift between you and your father?
I feel, there's in the school of psychology, we talk about epigenetics.
Mm.
And in epigenetics is the environment of just the surrounding aspects, the role play that we play, the characters we play, and even what we grow up with. So when you talk about a father and the father's role, what is the father's role? Is the father solely the disciplinarian, or is it also the nurturer? Can it be both? And so my father playing a role, typically that masculinity doesn't really communicate very well. So they know how to do the dominance, which they were taught, like do this, rules, regulations. So I was naturally in this concept of like having a father, him trying to figure out his role, him trying to understand the life he's living, and then also raise a man who's going to be approached to this life and go through this life. And so it's a kind of a way of like, what do I tell him? How do I approach him? And so my father raised me tough. He raised me hard, so my father's military and preacher. So I had total, like on all facets of discipline. And then also this really constructive way of living and growing up, I don't, hopefully I didn't go too far on a riff on that, but like,
No.
I think it's a dilemma with that. And so what I'm saying is naturally in that environment, with that misunderstanding, you're going to have conflict with the father. You have a younger man, you have a boy that you love, you want to love, but then the complications, as we know as men, how do we love? How do we show love? How do we communicate love? How do we even understand how to, speak these things? So what we've had a lot of times is the disciplinary action, like they come hard on you, but they'll never really tell you why. They don't tell you why we're coming hard on you. Why? What are we preparing you for? We just get the hard, so we like, okay, I got to be tough, and that's all we know, and then we go at life. And that's what I did. That's what made me a good football player.
Do you think that it was because of how he was raised as well? Or because I had a father that also was in the military. I mean, we had apartheid over this side. So my father he joined MKVA, then he went to Angola, and then they tried to they were fighting to kind of overthrow the government this side, and it was peacefully resolved. But I can kind of relate to certain things that you're saying, like he's a very disciplinarian, but don't you think that discipline also okay, don't you think he was that way because of, let's say, the experiences that he experienced, or also he was a disciplinarian in preparing you for the life that life won't be easy? I think most of the times when boys or men grow up, it's like they're trying to prepare us, but also what you said is that they never tell us that, dude, no one really cares about you until you do something as a man.
Yeah. And I agree with you. I think he was, in his mind, he was communicating and being what he thought. And I think it was needed. I mean, I think the toughness that my father instilled in me allowed me to be where I am today. However, when you talk about the conflict, well, naturally in that diaspora, well, you're going to have conflict, because if you constantly just beat on something and you don't say why, well, then you're going to rebel against that. So the evolution of like, because I've yet to see a person come to my class that didn't have childhood issues, because a lot of these misunderstandings have shaped us in our experience of going out, being men, being fathers, being in relationships. And the nature of it, we can't just go hard all the time. We have to also be able to develop our abilities to communicate, to share what our intentions fully mean and what they are. It's an evolution of the human that in a lot of cases, but I'm grateful for my father, but it would be nice to like say, okay, hey, I'm hard on you because life is going to be hard. I'm hard on you because I love you. Like for a long time, I didn't think my father loved me because he was just so hard on me, I think that misconception does translate in a way that, you know, a lot of what I've seen through teaching and going around the world, sharing the practices I teach now from the standpoint of mindfulness, I see a lot of that miscommunicated with young boys.
Mm.
So a lot of times this is also what, you know, carries over, but we can go into some of that later. But like, yeah, it's a real thing, because I always study things from a psychological perspective to realize the solution, you know.
See, this is how I can tell that you internalize a lot of things, because I do that as well, and I do like a lot of like I read some psychological thing. Always I'm analyzing myself. Oh, I'm doing this because this happened and this happened in my life. You see, that's how I can tell people that really internalize everything that they do.
Yeah, well, it's important. I think if you don't look at it as a psychology, well, then you get so emotionally involved that you can't evolve. You can't grow, you can't heal. And I think by looking at it as from a clinical perspective of pathology, it creates layers from the experience, because for so many years I had issues with authoritative personas in my life, whether it be coaches. You know, if a coach screamed at me, I screamed back. I was raised like that. You know, I was raised to stand up, be a man, be strong. So where does that strength, where does that stop? So you scream at me, I'm gonna scream back at you. That was my protocol, you know. I was challenged as a young boy to be that alpha male, you know, so that's the carryover. And I'm sure your brothers, you know, yourself as well, you know, that's how we showed up from that upbringing. But it's also important though. I think the balance is the whole spectrum in the family is the balance of the father with that discipline, but then that mother brings a nurturing factor. And I'm saying, and I'm suggesting the evolution of our family, and as men, we can also evolve to be able to communicate why we're so hard or why we need to have this discipline on our sons, because it raises a more developed human through the process, is my point.
So far, this interview, people are gonna learn so much from it. It's very, like, we could go on and on. Let's try and go career, and then we'll